Skate. Hate. Skate. Skate. 4. Ever since I can remember, I've always loved skateboarding. The noise, the art, the tricks, the music, the clothes. The inherent rebellious and anti-authority nature of skateboarding has always resonated with me and was hugely influential to an edgy young gecko in my formative years. So okay, here it goes. I'm gonna say it. I like skate. Mostly. To clarify, I mostly like the game for what it is. The skating itself is very satisfying, the world is colourful, and for the most part the city is fun to skate around, getting in some sick tricks that could only dream of landing in real life. Anyone who says that this is the worst skateboarding game ever made has clearly never had the carnal pleasure of playing the skateboarding section of California games on the first Sega console, Skateboard Madness Extreme Edition on the PS2, Tech Deck on the Game Boy Advance, or, do I dare mention the name, Street Skater on the PS1.
Alright, let's jam! 3, 2, 1, hit it! Come on, bust out some moves! Medic!
Now, does the game have its issues? You betcha it does. Is EA the quintessential comically evil billion-dollar corporation? Mate, I'm sure we don't even know about the half of it. But all in all, I am enjoying the newest entry in the Skate franchise, and I'm getting more from a free-to-play, live-service microtransaction store with skateboarding side quests than I ever thought I would have. Now in this video, I'm not going to be a shill. I'm not going to glaze up the game nice and greasy, but instead I am going to explore the phenomenon of contention that has become of a beloved skateboarding video game franchise, and maybe, just maybe, be allowed to have a little fun along the way. Let's get stuck in. Skateboard. Culture. What is a skateboarding? Are you a skater? Am I a skate? What the heck is this culture that's being yelled from the soapboxes of every street corner lately? Well, first a history in brief, and as a side, if I miss anything in here that you just can't live without, put it in the comments, and I may just do a whole separate video on skateboarding history. Nerd. Before the invention of colour itself, somewhere in America around the late 1940s to 50s, the people of the USA needed a cure for the Great Depression. There were no predatory pharmaceutical companies to feed them pills, no screens with manipulative Pokemachine-inspired mechanics that allowed them to ignore the world. Sunshine and exercise was the only alternative to make them feel better about life. They were simpler times. Nothing quite embodies the essence of that, quite like an old picture of a kid sitting on an even older wooden box, nailed to a piece of wood that has likely had hard clay or metal wheels haphazardly thrown on, looking all set to bomb a hill or barrel roll an old El Toro. Now this is not a poser. This is a good old-fashioned skater boy, just like Meemaw used to make. And they even had scooter kids back then too. Even if you already smoked a pack of ciggies a day, work 16 hours, 7 days a week, make no mistake, this is still a scooter kid. Go little fella, go. The universe really is cyclic in nature, huh? Anyway, getting back on track here. Sometime in the early 1950s, the surface of California and Hawaii began to attach roller skate wheels to wooden planks so they could surf the streets when the waves were flat. In 1956, Tim Tuthill and some mates got together to build some bun boards in Hermosa Beach. 1958, and Albert C. Boyden, also known as the Humco Surfer, patents a design for one of the first recognizable skateboard designs. Also credited is Bill Richard of the Chicago Roller Skate Company, but I'll let you guys fight over which one did it first. 1959 is when the roller derby skateboard was released as the very first commercial skateboard, featuring clay wheels and metal trucks. In 1964, the Quarterly Skateboarder launches its first issue, lasting for only 4 issues, but would make a return to the scene as Skateboarder magazine in 1975. In 1965, Patty McGee becomes the first female skateboarding national champion and scores the cover of Life magazine. What a legend. 1966, Vans, the brand we all know and love, opens its first factory in Anaheim, California, destined to become the definitive skateboarding shoe. So the 70s, skateboarding's on a roll now, and what follows is a decade of innovation, style and progression. In 1971, Larry Stevenson is at it again and patents a kicktail, the single upward curve at the back of a skateboard that we used to call one kickers back in the day, and I rocked one in the mid-90s while everyone else had their double kickers. 1972, and a geezer named Frank Nasworthy introduces the urethane wheels under the brand name Cadillac wheels, a huge step in the right direction for advancing skateboarding tricks and handling. 1975 gave us the Zephyr team, aka the Z-Boys, who showed up and quite literally carved their spot into skateboarding history at the Del Mar National Contest with their surf-like style. The Calidrata 76 gave skaters the idea to jump fences of often abandoned, sometimes just currently unoccupied houses, and started carving in empty swimming pools, birthing vert-style skating. Just a couple of years later in 78, a bloke named Alan Gelfand invents the ollie pop on the vertical walls of either a pool or a ramp. Rodney Mullen says that it's a pool, so I'm going to go with Rodney on this one. In 1981, Thrasher magazine is founded, breaking the mold of skateboarding's historically safe image of pastel, tans and big hair, bringing to the game dirt, grime and the DIY influence that we all know and love. But it's still mostly vert at this time. In 1982, the godfather of skating himself, Rodney Mullen, evolves the sport in a huge way by taking Gelfand's ollie pop and adapting it to the flat ground, giving the world of skating a new base for tricks forevermore, and essentially inventing street skating. In 1984, Pal Peralta releases the video The Bones Brigade Video Show, which featured a heavy-hitting lineup of legends such as Tony Hawk, Steve Caballero and Rodney Mullen, making it the first mass-distributed skating video as in videotape. 1986 rolls around and Mark Gonzalez puts on his massive pair of hangers to hit the first handrail in recorded skateboarding history. This effectively pushed the focus of skateboarding out of the pool and into the urban environment. 1989, and Norway lifted an existing 11-year ban on skateboarding. They had up until then been the only country in the world to outlaw skating entirely. That's pretty weak, Norway. Pretty weak. The 90s. What a rad time to be alive. We were really hanging 10 and cowabunga dude in my not at all biased opinion. Like every generation has and ever will say, you just had to be there. No household internet, games were released more or less finished, boy-girl pop groups were out of control, and skateboarding had about as much attitude as anyone could handle. No remorse and no holding back. 1991. The now widely recognised meta shape of the skateboard becomes the industry standard, initially pioneered by brands like World Industries and my personal favourite Blind. In 1992, using this new skateboard technology, Rodney Mullen once again put in some serious work for the game by inventing the kickflip, its ugly cousin the heel flip, and the elusive, for me anyway, 360 or tray flip. If you're hating on Roddy, you got it backwards, mate. 94. The World Cup of Skateboarding is established and holds the first World Skateboarding Championship in Vancouver, Canada. 1995, and the first X Games kicks off. 9 days of proper 90s extreme behaviour, including bungee jumping, street luging, and of course a bit of skateboarding. 1996. Big Brother, Girl, Chocolate, and World Industry skate brands start the era of super technical flips and grinds on ledges and stairs. 1999. The world braces for the Y2K bug and the impending downfall of mankind. Cue the X Games, San Fran. Big day for the team when Tony Hawk lands the first 900 and firmly cements the Birdman in the annals of skateboarding history, while simultaneously saving the world from Armageddon. This also brought the very first Tony Hawk's Pro Skater to be released onto the world, the final piece of the puzzle to bring skateboarding fully into the mainstream. June 21st, 2003 becomes the first of the annual Go Skateboarding Days, as designated by the International Association of Skateboard Companies. 2004, Danny Way manages to get his biblically sized balls up to the top of the world's first public debut of the Mega Ramp and sends a 70-foot plus gap. Not content with that, Danny then decided to see if he could jump over the Great Wall of China. And in 2005, after nearly sending himself to meet Steezus the fast way, it turns out that he indeed could jump the Great Wall of China. 2009 sees the establishment and the first inductees of the Skateboarding Hall of Fame. Included were Tony Hawk, Tony Alva, Bruce Logan, and Danny Way and his massive nuts. Right, almost there with the history lesson. How you doing, buddy? You hanging in there? Alright, let's get it over and done with. 2010, and Robbo launches the Street League skateboarding competitions. With its Skate Plaza format and instant scoring format, it becomes an instant success. Love 'em or hate 'em, Dirtette can't miss. 2012, the world hangs on bated breath as it prepares to end again. Only for Tom Shah, a 12-year-old beast, following in the footsteps of the Birdman to save the world, denying the Mayan calendar, while landing the first 1080 on a mega ramp. In 2016, the International Olympic Committee officially brings skateboarding into the program for the Tokyo 2020 Games. 2019, and the world isn't doing too hot again. With some mystery dickhead flu popping up around the world, Mitchy Brusco steps up and challenges the pandemic by landing the first 1260 in the X Games. A valiant effort all the same, but we know how that ended up for everybody. 2021 sees the Olympic debut of skateboarding. Countries from around the world sent their best to battle to the death in a high-stakes, super clean and super technical series of skateboarding events. Right, that was a lot. Let's take a quick break and come back to it fresh. Okay, that is a bit better. Sometimes you have to put the tools down and walk away for a minute. Anyway, onwards. So for all of its iterations throughout history, one thing has remained true about skateboarding and the culture around it. And that is, skateboarding has always been adopted by the outcasts, the social rejects, and otherwise disenfranchised of society. These people who choose risk, pain, and struggle in pursuit of their glory. So with this perspective in mind, it really comes as no surprise that there has always been a certain level of overprotective, if not somewhat justified, guarding of the culture and the activity itself against authority and corporate sanitization. From not doing yourself any favours by trespassing, to just using a public space and being kicked out for what is deemed antisocial behaviour, there has always been a stigma attached to the dirt under the nails way about skating, and it has always run as a counterculture to general society's sensibilities and order. Think of it as a front line of rebellion, and that is what is truly on display here. And with the state of the modern business world using video games for context, it really is no surprise the level of passionate and furious feedback Skate 2025 has been currently receiving. In my humble opinion, skating has always been about a few core philosophical concepts: freedom of movement, self-expression, merit-based inclusion, and most of all, wait for it, fun. And I will die on that hill, even if you don't want to admit to yourself that skating is actually fun and is not to be taken so seriously that that aspect in of itself is forgotten. Alright, so that brings us to Skate Dot, or Skate 25, or Skate 4 if you're nasty. I have to be honest and say I didn't even know that this game was coming out. Having fully missed out on the closed alpha playtests and everything surrounding that, I won't speak on it. But instead I'll leave that experience to the people who participated to talk about it if they choose to. I accidentally found Skate browsing through Steam one day looking for something to play. Against my better judgment, I started searching the free-to-play section, and there it was. Skate. So we're just about 250 hours in at time of recording. Here we are, the pros and the cons. Starting with a couple of the subjectively good points I see in the game as it stands today. The skating mechanics, probably one of the most important aspects of a skating game to be fair, absolutely smashed it. Bloody bowled that over. Now, are there tricks that are not represented that we'd like to see? Sure. But the feeling of snappy, responsive and smooth skating is present, more or less, and leaves plenty of room for adding new tricks to the game as we go. Sam Van City. Probably an unpopular opinion, but overall, I like the city itself. Don't get me wrong, I'd love a massive mountain road to bomb and leave behind a few gecko skid marks. But there are a ton of wicked little street skating spots and a couple of banger parks. Accessibility. The ability to stall a free 10GB game, set some assists if you need them and get straight into skating is a great low barrier to entry for new players. As you get better at the game, start dropping assists for continued challenges and added realism. Personally, I like most of the glitches. I don't need a game to be hyper realistic, as we used to use third-person angles in games to clip the camera through walls to find secrets. So a bus trying to hunt me down like I owe it money is not destroying my experience overall. Although launching my speeder at the skate of light into a wall when I'm on the last bearing of a challenge is not ideal. The video editor, a personal favourite of mine. Once you get the hang of it, it is actually quite a lot of fun. I've personally caught a lot of flack for using some more exotic and unconventional filming techniques, i.e. no technique, so I started working on a realism focused filming style, and I copped flack for that too. So might as well blend them together and just have a bit of fun with it. Okay, you can't have the good without a bit of the bad. How would we know one without the other? Starting with microtransactions. Let's get that one out of the way nice and early. Free-to-play inherently means that there will be, at the very least, cosmetic options in a virtual store. Such is the case here. And although it is not necessarily a bad thing in of itself, a lot of these items are recolored versions of the same base item skin. We can always expect a bit of that, but there is a real lack of authentic creativity on display with a lot of the items present. Not to mention that some of these cosmetics cost upwards of $8.95 here in New Zealand, per item, for virtual clothing. That is a bit steep, mate. Now while we're talking about cosmetics, why can't we change our hat wearing styles without buying a whole new hat? Wear the plain black or plain white socks. What about backpacks, headphones, jewellery? I mean, I won't use most of it, but there are those out there that would, and they would pay more to the overlords for the privilege to do so. It stands to reason that if you're going to push cosmetics, the options need to be vast and the customization needs to be deep. The voiceovers. V, you got turned off as soon as I could find the option to. I don't imagine there are thousands of people out there hanging out to listen to a disembodied dial-up router waffling on trying to be relatable. Personal bone of contention I have is the lack of a creator park feature. Dude, that is easily my favourite part of a skating game. Now we do get 5 slots to drop ramps and items into the world. It's cool and pushes creativity, but I'm going to need you to come up out them pockets so I can make a street league style plazas and a mega ramp park. Easy another 100 hours worth of engagement for that one. Get on it and give it up. On that, I don't know if we're ready to talk about there not being a proper mega ramp outside of the tutorial, but there is no real mega ramp to speak of, and that hurts everybody's feelings. Jumping off a skyscraper into a reasonably poor placed crane ramp doesn't really count, mate. I do appreciate the sentiment, but that's not quite it. The lack of legacy brands are a bit of a letdown as well. Much like the rest of the video, this is mostly opinion based, but where is Blind, World Industries, Toy Machine, Almost, Zero, etc, etc, etc. I get that there will be some issues playing nice with other brands and getting them on board, but I'll be genuinely chuffed to see some of these iconic brands in future seasons. I don't like to dwell on the negatives of things, but I do need to ask, and without being a knob about it, who is this game made for? Because it's not exactly for the actual skater gamer demographics, or dinosaurs of gaming like myself who grew up on Sega, Tony Hawk and the OG Skate series. These people don't usually care for cutesy emotes and live service product models. It can't just be for the youngins, trying that age-old model of hitting the parents' pockets through their seed. Because although all the components are represented by way of emotes, safe cartoon art styles, addictive challenge loops and the like, they already get that fix from standing IPs like Fortnite. And I doubt you're going to successfully punch up on that one, mate. Is this an accuracy by volume production? Is this a shotgun in the chicken coop kind of deal? Because I will say, although you may get a lot of hits first shot, all the noise scares away the rest before you can reload, which seems to have happened here. Now you may have noticed that I haven't touched on recent events surrounding EA and Full Circle from January to March 2026. That is because you are a very observant little Sherlock indeed. So let's roll up our sleeves, plug our noses, and jump right on into the mud. Alright. Yeah, order in the court, everybody settle down. Now I know how you get, so just chill out for a second, hear me out. Now, as I've already said, I wasn't there for the alpha play test, so I can't speak on that one. But maybe around December 2025 or January 2026, somewhere around there, I started to play the game and was instantly impressed by just how good it felt to play. Everything mostly worked. Everything mostly looked good. The microtransactions seemed mostly in keeping of being reasonable by any modern standards, and overall had no impact on my experience playing. Right, the gecko thought to himself, we might be onto a bit of a winner here. So I started grinding away at the challenges and trophies, and after maybe 100 or so hours, I reached the last achievement, unlocked near all the cosmetic boxes, paid for the Season 1 pass, finished that up, and even paid for some cosmetics. Some for my earlier Steve's videos, and some simply because I liked them. Hey, just quickly while I got you too, I'm really quite proud of some of those old Steve's videos as art pieces and concepts, so go have a look at those and leave some comments. As another side note, I'm well aware that my purchases in-game amount to nothing in real life, and as a fan of absurdism philosophy, it basically boils down to this. I enjoy a little fake skater man dressed in clothes I think are cool, while I LARP about actually being good at skating in a virtual world. It is just that simple to me. Basically, if nothing matters, then you may as well enjoy what you're doing. Anyway, moving on. I was hooked. I was participating in the loop of completing challenges, earning what felt like 15 in-game currencies, and then using them to get silly little cosmetics. In Season 1, roll on Season 2. The blue ticks currency was mostly wiped, with the percentage carrying over. Not psyched, but I'd spent near all of mine, so we roll with it. I won't lie to you, I was not hyped on the theme for Season 2 straight off the bat. But that's okay, the 80s theme grew on me, so we got that pass and balled out with the intention of saving up for a partial rollover of ticks for Season 3. Then the dev update came out, essentially stating that there would be a complete wipe of ticks, which mind you can be paid for with real money. So I say again, will be completely wiped out at the end of Season 2 after using your ticks to force purchases on things you obviously didn't want from the pass in the first place. Okay, so that is not good news at all. In fact, it feels suspiciously illegal, if not at the very least an unethical business practice. This elicited a, what will we call it, a vocal reaction online from the player base, to varying degrees of sense, hate and genuine criticism. To say that the players were not happy would be putting it very mildly indeed. I won't lie to you, even though it didn't affect me directly, I threw my toys, uninstalled, and moved back to having a sulk in Skate 3. I tried Tony Hawk again on the old faithful PS1, and I may have even looked in the direction of Street Skater again. But the call was strong, and in all honesty I missed the game and the genuine fun I was having while playing and making clips. After a quick reinstall we were off again, having a grand old time. Boom, dev update. Boom, crushing defeat. Kind of. The short of it is that we can finally return to an updated version of Tutorial Island. But at a cost, and the wording behind all of this was very confusing at first to most. So explained in plain English for anyone still not hip to the game yet. Number 1. Grom Island is only accessible via an in-game water taxi, i.e. you will likely be loaded into a separate instance of the game and likely not be able to glitch or teleport there via other means. Number 2. If you buy the premium pass for Skate, you will receive access to Grom Island a month earlier than everyone else. Number 3. After that first month, players can then use 500 of their RIP chips, the orange ones, from completing regular challenges, to get a 24-hour pass to Grom. After those 24 hours, you will have to buy another 24-hour pass for a further 500 RIP chips, rinse and repeat. Now this did not go down well, and to be honest, from my personal perspective, I cannot blame people for getting mad. Given the controversy surrounding a certain infamous international supervillain, one would think that all companies around the world, and especially those in the public eye, would do absolutely everything in their power to avoid any controversy even looking in the direction of wet sand. let alone a full-on island DLC, while simultaneously walking back on old promises. As the saying goes, there is no such thing as bad press if you know how to handle it. And handle it EA did. Badly. In brief, there were several corporately formatted actions and internet press releases in response to the outcry, not least of all being a removal of the statement of no new maps being locked behind a paywall, replaced instead with a message of how things change and procedures will be updated. A reasonably snarky and backhanded message. Mate, just quietly, that is not a good look, straight up. So the gecko, who is currently studying to transition into the business management world, cracked his knuckles, fired up some threads on Steam, Reddit and EA forums, and started his very first consumer feedback report tailored for the corporate culture. And this brings us to... well, to be completely honest, that went better than I thought it would. I mean, there were the odd spicy posts, a few that were sincerely not relevant and give credence to the dead internet theory, and then, deep in the mud, there were the gems. Some comments, feedback and suggestions were actually really good, and were implemented in the final report. Others, well, you use the internet and you know how it is out there. We covered things like the company's decision to erase ticks, or force buying items from the past with leftover ticks. We noted that updating and essentially paywalling the Isle of Grom was not a play that was ethical or appreciated at all, instead perhaps releasing Grom free and paywalling the next map. We called into question the decision to blatantly change the post about not using a paywall on maps. Again, that one was pretty tragic for optics if I'm honest. We made suggestions on what the community would actually spend money on by way of cosmetics and brands. The list went on. I posted the draft for final feedback and touch-ups, but I'm not sure people read the part where it was the draft. Tidied that bad boy up, posted the final one, we were away laughing. Well, bugger me. Imagine my surprise when I got a follow-up on both Steam and EA forums, although I was asked to not post a thread in both forums on the EA website. My bad, mate, I can only apologise. Just wanted to make sure it got out there, as a fair bit of effort and consideration went into putting all that together. It even had a couple of graphs in it. We did, however, get the tried and true, we will pass that on to the team. I am mostly only joking, mate. I choose to take it on good faith that it was passed on, but I understand the way these things go is that your hands are probably tied there at full circle, and there's not much you can do about the decision-making process. Right, well I reckon we've been banging on about it long enough now. It's about time to wrap up this little journal entry. So where to from here? Well, somewhere between the doomers and the loyalists lies the truth of the matter. The game itself is not doing too flash numbers wise, and EA is very much out of touch with the product that they are selling and the core demographic likely to participate in it. But I doubt that Skate is dead. In fact, I choose to remain cautiously optimistic that after Season 3, Skate 2025 will start coming right as the development studio full circle may be allowed a little more rope in the decision making processes. And perhaps they can start forming Skate into what it wants to be, a good old fashioned skateboarding game. For now though, I think I'm just going to go have a skate about it, twist my ankle, and see what Season 3 brings. Check, check, one check, one check, one check, seagull, one check. Oh.